Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here. Time to talk about winter storms. It is the off-season edition of the Hurricane Outlook and Discussion. No, I'm not just hurricane-centric. A big part of my job is to keep people aware of dangerous weather situations, high-impact events that are going to affect a whole lot of people over a whole lot of areas. And winter storms can do that. Severe weather in the warm season, Tornado Alley, etc., that can do that. Big flood events, the coastal storms that we see, the big nor'easters that affect New England in particular. I'm interested in all of these, and those that I can get to and put equipment out in, I do. So here we are. It's the off season, no longer hurricane season, but it is winter storm season. And look at the map here from weather.gov, the National Weather Service homepage, starting to fill in. I mentioned this yesterday, that we would see this filling in and become much more active. We have everything from winter weather advisories, winter storm watches and warnings, to flood watches here. That's included into Georgia too, the western part of the Carolinas, parts of southern Virginia, winter storm watches and warnings. And then for the coastal areas, gale watch, I guess, or gale warning. We'll take a look at this closer, but it's going to be a wind event with some coastal flooding issues here from the Outer Banks down to parts of the Low Country. And, we're talking about a very high impact, millions and millions of people being affected in big metropolitan areas from flooding, as an example, in the Houston area perhaps. And these are just some singled out big metropolitan areas. Of course, this will affect other areas. We saw flooding in San Antonio. This will spread down the coast, all across the I-10 corridor, Florida Panhandle, the areas where Michael impacted. Very heavy rain, possible severe weather, excessive rainfall in some cases, and that's going to be a big problem. And then, of course, in the cold air, as that tries to drain in out of Canada and set up this large dome of colder air up here that seeps down mainly east of the Appalachians, gets sort of dammed up on the eastern side, the leeward side of the Appalachians, at least this time of year. The prevailing flow is typically out of the northwest. The cold air will set up shop here, and it's just a matter of how dense and how long that cold air can hang on in terms of big cities like Charlotte and Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, maybe Greensboro, but I think Winston-Salem points west. The I-77 corridor and points west from there. Probably going to see a massive snow, some sleet out of this. The Triangle, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, Clayton, Garner, all the way down Albemarle, all the way into Mecklenburg County, Charlotte area. Don't know. It's going to be iffy. So let's show you what we've got. What are the players? Looking at the water vapor imagery this time of year, very effective to show this. Also effective to use a color that shows up better. Here's the energy coming in out of the southwest, and some of the surface low trying to form over here, it looks like. So a lot of available energy overall, a lot of moisture in the atmosphere. The El Nino down along the equator. It's not technically an El Nino yet, but it's getting there. A very typical pattern where you get these storm systems that kind of come in, mill across the Gulf Coast, and then, in this case, go out to sea. Sometimes they come up the coast or just offshore, and you get these massive winter storms. This one will impact pretty much like this for the most part. New England and the big cities, D.C., etc., Fredericksburg, all the way up to Boston and beyond. This is not your storm, but it's early. It's only December 7th. There's a lot of time to go. Some people just don't care for winter weather, and you got to be careful. The excitement for winter weather is probably mostly because of the snow, and people are interested in snow, and snow can be pretty, but it can also be very dangerous, and we have to be mindful of that. Lives will be lost in this storm because of common sense errors, probably. People driving too fast, that'll probably be a big factor for the conditions, whether it be rain or the wintry precipitation. And then there are just the other effects that go on, these impacts, and it can take lives. So let's remember that, okay? It's exciting to sort of look at this, but that excitement needs to be tempered with the fact that this is not just a interesting weather system. It has the potential to be dangerous if not understood and respected properly. The radar tells the picture here. The heaviest rain now in parts of eastern and southeastern Texas here, and the I-10 corridor towards San Antonio out of Houston. This will all continue to slide off to the east with time. So my recommendation here, if you're going to be traveling I-10 across the Gulf Coast over the next day, this will be a rapidly moving system. The rainfall will come in fast and furious. It can be very heavy at times, multiple inches of rain accumulating. And if you're a trucker, if you're a traveler, or whatever it is, you might just be going a fairly short distance. And even the secondary roads, be careful out there. All right, that is the number one goal of my work, is to keep people safe by taking my excitement for the weather and translating it into something that can be informative and eye-opening and useful to you. Oh yeah, let's just slide east real quick. I wanted to show you overall, trying to move its way east. A little bit of rainfall maybe showing up above ground. We call that virga in a lot of these areas here in the southeast, not quite reaching the ground just yet, but let me tell you, it's coming. This is the 12Z GFS, obviously from earlier today. Just want to show you one of the runs here from one of the models. We almost have too many models to look at, but I'm just going to give you an idea of what the modeling via the GFS does show. And this is courtesy of tropicaltidbits.com, and this will give us every 6 hours, and this begins from roughly this afternoon is the first shot here that we see. All right, and the initialization again was from 12Z today, which means that it was initialized this morning with the data from upper air soundings and other satellite data assimilated into the global model system, and then you get this beautiful output put together where we can appreciate it from Levi Cowan at Tropical Tidbits. All right, so let's just move through, and you see this is pretty much where we are roughly right now. A little beforehand, this goes to 0Z tonight. This is every 6 hours. So let's just move through, and you see how this evolves. Look at the greens. That's your lighter rainfall, and then the bullseye of much heavier rain moving into the Houston metro area and beyond. I know a lot of focus is paid to Houston for obvious reasons. Several million people live there, but this is a Texas-wide event in terms of the impacts, not just Houston, but Lake Charles, all the way down to maybe Corpus Christi, Victoria. You know the area, the 59 corridor, I-10, 288, all that area. Pay attention. Slow down, slow down, slow down if you're driving out there, all right? So this gets us through tomorrow morning early, so around 1 o'clock in the morning, and then 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, and then we get to 1 o'clock tomorrow evening, or afternoon, I mean, and this moves on across. Snow's starting to try to come into the Appalachians there. Severe weather along the Gulf Coast, a big-time, high-impact event. As this moves across, this is now Sunday morning, very early, sunrise Sunday morning. Now the coastal impacts come in. Just look at that for a second. Wow. All those isobars packed in there, strong east to northeast winds, onshore flow. Coastal flooding going to be an issue for the Outer Banks. The beaches are going to have big-time waves, overwash, surf problems, flooding, even in the Sounds, the areas that were impacted by Florence, New Bern, Oriental, Little Washington, as we call it. It's technically called Washington, North Carolina. A lot of people refer to it as Little Washington. But the downwind side of the Sounds and the river mouths are going to be problematic as well as this storm system cranks up. And then you see the very heavy snow in the Piedmont into the mountain region, some of that mixing perhaps around and just west of Charlotte, maybe up to the Triangle. We'll just have to wait and see. And then this scoots offshore and cold air filters in. Not bitterly cold, but then another low tries to form. Look at that, real close to the coast. This time frame is Monday into Tuesday. So amazing the energy that tries to form out of this overall troughiness, and then the surface lows that develop and scoot out to sea. You notice they do not come up the coast, bringing New England a big impact event. Not this time around. All right, wanted to show you a couple things. That's my Twitter homepage. This is the National Weather Service out of Greenville, Spartanburg. You see the large area in pink, winter storm warnings. Yeah, this is a very good time to remind you. You can go to the Weather Service homepage right here. You can put in your zip code. Example, mine is 28405. And you see it says Wilmington, North Carolina. You put yours in. You get the return page, And there you go. You've got, what's happening. Somebody's knocking on my door at the office. They'll have to just wait a second. Kids are home from school, so this is why I can't do it live all the time. But here's Wilmington, and you can get the forecast for your information, your area. And it's very helpful because it's going to give you these headlines up here that I'm going to try to show you, like here, out of Greenville, Spartanburg. They have a good rundown of everything, and there it is. It's spelled out for you, and hopefully easy to understand information. Same thing here as an example out of the National Weather Service, Morehead City, Newport area. This is in a PDF, PowerPoint format. Breaks it all down very nice with graphics. It's kind of like an infographic of impacts, location, timing. This is all readily available. And here's the part that I was talking about for the coast. We don't want to ignore the coast on this. Yeah, 1 to 2 feet above ground with ocean overwash in the typical areas that get flooded on the sound side down here. Yeah, absolutely. Could have some fairly substantial flooding in those low-lying areas from this very strong onshore flow, similar to if there was a hurricane or a tropical storm moving from the south, heading out to sea, if you will. So kind of think of it like a tropical system, but a lot colder. The impacts are the same. You get storm surge, yes, all the way up to New Bern, perhaps. Union Point, where I had the camera system for Florence, Oriental, the areas that I was talking about earlier. This is all available at weather.gov. Put your zip code in. Different WFOs, those are weather forecast offices, have different ways that they produce these updates. Sometimes it's on YouTube, sometimes they're in PDF, sometimes they're just a couple of graphics put together to explain, and sometimes many graphics, what to expect. So this is an example out of the Weather Service in Newport, Morehead City, North Carolina. And then there's social media. Outside of the national media, when it comes to local weather, people in your area that know what they're talking about. And these are just 4 suggestions for you. These don't necessarily mean that they are the best or the only, but this is a handful of people that I follow. Eric Webb, and you can see right up there, Eric Weber Weather. Check that out if you're not following Eric. And he has some very good information here, some of it pertaining to the profiles in the atmosphere. You want to really get inside what some of these smart people are looking at. You start to develop a consensus of what to expect overall. We're in a world where we want to know how much snow is going to fall at my house. How high is the wind from Hurricane so-and-so going to be at my house? And we lose sight of the bigger picture, that it impacts your house, your neighborhood, your community, your town, your county, and then your state, okay? And so, yes, it's nice to know what to expect. I understand that. But getting in and kind of understanding some of the meteorology, I think that's helpful. And if you don't understand, maybe message one of these guys and ask them, at them. You know how to do that. You just respond and you say, hey, what does that mean? Or whatever. And in this case, Eric's talking about this warm nose that tries to come in, this warm air that gets veered in. Because, there's going to be low pressure off the coast. I'll see if I can find a map here. Low pressure is going to scoot by like that, and so you're going to throw warmer air back off the ocean at different levels of the atmosphere, and that might undercut and erode that cold air that's dense. And this is called a forecast sounding, and Eric's talking about that here. Let me move on. I just wanted to point this out. Eric Webb, a great follow, as is Alan Huffman. You're going to get some different snow maps and their ideas, the reasoning behind them, etc., and so forth and so on. It is great. I love the ability to crowdsource information, especially from trusted sources. We have this whole thing out there about, misinformation. We'll just leave it at that. These are the people that know what they're talking about, and so these are who I follow, just as an example. And Scotty, I've just started following him recently, and I'll probably see Scotty over the weekend because I think I'm going to be setting up here in the Morganton area. See that right there? I'll talk about that at the end here. But Scotty Powell, also a good follow, part of the Carolina Weather Group, right? Remember I was on that show the other night, the Carolina Weather Group broadcast. And then, of course, there's Weather Brad, and very, very popular in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area. out of NBC Charlotte. Few people really understand this like Brad does from a, I don't want to say professional as if the other ones are not, but from a broadcast, big-time television star. Brad Panovich is certainly one to follow. You know that already probably. And he tweets a lot of other information. Talk about a weather nerd who's really done something great in his passion. So these are just 4 that I suggest, okay? But again, I'm going to reemphasize one more time. To get the technical part of your forecast from the Weather Service, right there, put your zip code in. And just real quick as an example, Raleigh, 27605, Raleigh, North Carolina. This is what you get on the return. Red area, yeah, you want to read those. Those are usually important. And then you can, news headlines, stuff that jumps out. Click here to link to our winter weather page. There it is. And they have all these different tabs. And it can be a little bit of a read, but put the effort in, folks. Put the effort in and learn what's happening for this upcoming storm, and it'll really help you. All right, so I want to show you this real quick. I should have pulled it up earlier, but that's okay. I am going to be covering this, and I will be doing so as this pulls up. I got my work cut out for me. So what I plan to do is set up a camera system, a pair of them, starting out here on the Outer Banks. I'm going to have one out here in Rodanthe, and I'm going to have one in Nags Head because I'm expecting some fairly significant overwash due to the ocean, the long fetch, the duration, etc. I'd love to come around and put them all over in down East North Carolina, but I'm just one person with limited time and so forth and so on. So I'm going to cover the ocean side effects from Rodanthe and Nags Head, and then I'm going to jump on 64 West and make my way all the way over to Raleigh, where I'll pick up I-40. Then I'm going to go all the way over here to Statesville. And I have a sweet spot in Statesville that I'm going to set up a camera. I did so in 2014 for a winter storm, and it's a real good spot. And this is an important area because this is where you have I-40 and I-77 coming together. I'm going to put the camera actually in downtown Statesville, if you will, not out on the interstate. It'll get snow and whatever plowed over it. You got to put them way off to the side. You got to avoid those snow plows. Yeah, it's going to be a plowable event, big time, and those plows are going to be working hard. So we're going to have a camera in Statesville, and then I'm going to set up another one probably in Morganton, and if not Morganton, definitely Marion. I just haven't decided yet. So in total, I'll have 4 if you're keeping up. And those will be seen from time to time on the Weather Channel. Of course, I work with them. Those will also be feeding into our app. Yes, it's called Hurricane Impact. And I wish I could change the name during the winter to Winter Storm Impact or whatever. But if you already have the app or you are on Patreon, you'll be able to watch these cameras as part of those packages, just to let you know. And I'll tweet some screenshots from time to time on Twitter. And I'll be out just taking video and posting some things on Twitter. I'll take my quadcopter with me and fly that whenever possible to show you some of the scenes. I don't know if I'm going to stay in Hickory or Statesville in terms of my hotel tomorrow night, but either way, I'll have some shots from the interstate as safely as I can. I'm going to probably try to hunker down and try to not drive until everything's plowed, because that gets real dangerous. You got to be careful out there. This stuff, the storms do not respect me. Trust me, they don't care. And nature has no ill will. It's just, it is what it is. And so I am not immune to travel problems. And I've got a nice rental vehicle that I'm going to use instead of using my one of my 2 Hurricane Tracker trucks, 2 Chevy Tahoes. We've got one of them, of course, out of commission after almost 500,000 miles. The other one getting on up towards 250,000 miles. We purchased that one in 2017. It's actually a 2001, exactly like the other one. We were going to use it for parts and stuff, but the other one conked out and finally gave up, and we're figuring things out. But anyway, I've got a Ford F-150, 4-wheel drive, so at least I'll be safe, but you got to still be really, really careful. And I'm not driving around during the height of this or whatever. I'm going to wait until things are calmer and easier. But I'll be posting what I can. I'll be streaming live on YouTube the moment that I start. And hopefully that'll continue unabated. and you can see what's happening. So there you go. If you're in line for this to affect you, please be careful out there. Use common sense from the flooding aspect to the coastal impacts and, of course, the winter storm part. I want you back to be able to watch future videos. Down deep in my heart, I care about you, and that's why I do this. Alrighty? Have a good weekend, and if you're in the path of this storm, take some video if you can do so safely. Tag me on Twitter if you want to, and I'd love to see it, but try to be safe. Don't venture out and do something dumb, and I'll try to do the same. Okie doke? All right, thanks for tuning in. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, with this winter storm update for you. I'll see you from YouTube and on the road throughout the weekend.